Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Impractical Machinist podcast. My name is Patrick, and as always, I'm joined by my two co-hosts.
I'm Brad with Marvel Machining.
Cameron from Machining is Cool.
And we got Ian from... Ian, you want to introduce yourself?
Machine and Tool. Yeah, and I guess Practical Machinist, but both. Thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Who do people know you from more? Where do people know you from more?
Are we talking about in my small town of Newmarket, Ontario, or when I go places? People don't tend to know me from Lakewood Machine, but yeah, no, it's funny. A lot of my customers, everybody who comes to my shop from media end of things, is always like, man, everybody must know you here from Practical Machinist. And there's some of that, but I'm like, nah, dude, I'm Ian Sandusky with the old mills in his shop. You know, there's no fanfare there.
Just a regular guy, huh?
Not, and some people don't recognize you out in public.
No, absolutely not. Never. It's good.
I guess, Ian, let's go to your backstory in Lakewood.
So, as most people know, I mean, Brad, you're a much braver guy than me. I didn't start Lakewood Machine and Tool. My dad did back in 1988. Okay. But he started it with 4 other partners. So they were at another tool and die shop in town. They wanted to go it on their own. They went and did that. This was before CNC really was a big thing where we were. So they were doing tool and die, mainly servicing the furniture industry, you know, filing cabinets, stamp stuff like that. And within 2 years, every single one of his partners had dropped out. I think for the first 2 or 3 years in Canada, at the end of the year, I don't know what you guys have in the States, whatever your tax form that has your income tax on it and it lists your salary that you took during the year. He had a 3 or 4 digit T4 is what we call it in Canada. So we're talking less than $10,000. And this is in 1992. Yeah. I know money was worth a lot more then, but that's nothing. So it was obviously an extreme struggle to make it work. But then, I mean, they kept going. And in about 94, because my oldest machine is a 94, they bought a Haas VF3 new in 1994. So you know what that machine looks like. And they were one of the first.
Still up and running?
Still up and running. I was running it today. Wow. You know, it's had a couple spindle replacements and gearboxes and stuff, but they were one of the first shops in the area to get into CNC. So they were able to charge very good money for what they were doing. And then they expanded that into, they still did tool and die up until probably 2001 in some capacity. And we still do it a little bit, but by, 2001, we had pivoted almost 100% to, short run to medium run CNC production. But yeah, it's
nice.
Like you said, you can't exactly just buy a $35,000 machine and throw it on the floor.
Right.
There's a lot of things that go into it, from the other equipment you have to actually going out and getting customers to managing your cash flow and all that fun stuff. If everybody could just throw a machine in the garage and make it work, everybody would look like Brad, and unfortunately there's a lot more that goes to it than that. Brad's extremely successful. Right. Does you have 4 machines there?
4 machines now. Yep.
4 machines. Yep. And I think I was listening in the last one, your best year you did 600,000.
Yep.
That is
solo.
Yeah, that's abnormal, and it goes to show how much went into making that work, right? That's that's an amazing success story, but there's a lot that people didn't see behind that, I'm sure. So what were like the biggest challenges that you didn't expect? Because you've been in the trade for years. I mean, every guy who works at a shop for years, you're like, I can go do this. What were the things that you didn't see coming with that?
Probably the amount of time it takes to, just the time you're going to invest in everything. You don't realize, everybody tells you, accounting, finding jobs, you're ordering material, everything. As a one-man shop, you have to do everything. So, some days I catch myself sitting here and all of a sudden it's 12 o'clock and I've quoted work. I've done some ship. I haven't even turned on a machine yet. So there's so much more to it. And early on, it was take as much jobs as I can. And then I find myself like, oh shit, I can't keep up. I can't keep the machines running, program, package stuff, ship it, get it down to anodize. And early on, I was driving around quite a bit too. So there were days where the anodizer I use is about a 45-minute drive. I'd go down there in the morning, drop stuff off. They'd call me by about noon. It's done. I'd go back down there. So I'd waste 3 hours a day driving.
Yeah.
And, it's things you got to learn early on. Now I use a courier, so I don't ever leave the shop. It costs me money, but I can keep my machines running. And as a one-man, I've kind of pushed more for work that has long run times so I can do stuff on the computer. If I can set up my machine, let it run for 3 hours, I can get a lot of shit done. And it's nice. And I got 4 machines, but I don't necessarily keep 4 machines running at all times. They're more for setup. So if I need to move from my VF3 to my horizontal, I have everything ready. I'm not restricted to one machine.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And that was when I bought my horizontal. That was kind of I kind of just winged it when I bought it. I wasn't planning on buying one. It was just a great deal at auction, but I don't do production. So it's, what am I going to do with 6 pallets? For me, I got 6 setups, so I never have to move a vise. I never have to take the vise out, put something in. I can just pull in another pallet. And it's worked out great. I can go from setup to setup to setup without ever removing anything from a table.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But there's one thing I did want to push back on that you said in the last episode. You were saying, and listen, one-man shows are amazing. You answer to yourself. The work gets done when you do it, when you want to do it. You're not beholden to anybody. It's a great thing. But one thing you said was, if you got another person in, they would have to essentially be another you. So they'd have to set up, they'd have to program, they'd have to pretty much run independently, right?
Yep.
The only thing I push back on that with is, what if you had somebody that could free you up to do the work that only you could do? You know what I mean? So if I know you're an amazing programmer, you're amazing at, designing work holding and stuff. What if you were free more to focus on that and had somebody else to do the stuff that you don't need to be doing? Have you, I know I'm not trying to pressure you to get another staff member, but have you looked at it that way?
No. So you're saying, like, if I was to get somebody that could do the quoting, take care of finishing, get stuff down there, schedule that, packaging, shipping, and all that type of stuff. I guess I've never really thought of it because I'm not doing that every day, but I guess to that thought, if I had somebody that did it, I could take on more work that I could be handling. I would never be pulled away from running the machine. So, valid point. I think it's probably a stepping stone to growth when the time comes.
Sure. Maybe you don't want to grow. Everybody always says they want to grow. Everything needs to be perpetually going up and up and up. It's not necessary. If you're making a good living, you're enjoying what you're doing, who cares? But if there is something where it's like, man, I want to take on more and I can't do it, I just thought I'd throw that at you because that's kind of the way we have to look at it, especially in our shop. I said for years, I only want machinists that can hit the ground running. Basically exactly what you said. I want someone to go, you do everything. Those people don't exist as much anymore, just out there looking for jobs, right? So we've had to pivot to, hey, instead of finding a guy who can do everything, now it's how can we free up the more experienced guys to focus on the stuff that they're best at. This guy does not need to be running production. This guy does not need to be touching off tools or, setting up vices. We can get someone to do that. Yep. Now he's programming, he's doing setups, he's quoting, something to think about anyway. So
yeah,
definitely, for sure.
We follow that same mentality at our shop. Basically if people have advanced skills, keep them in that advanced skill zone, and then don't have them doing things like panning parts or packaging parts or just basic work that really anybody can do after they get, somewhat familiarized with it. I mean, it's a short training period to go from not knowing anything to being able to package parts. It's not short to go from that or from nothing to programming on your own and doing complex parts and holding tolerances and inspection and all that stuff. So I always try to keep, the people with the least experience doing the busy work and the people with the most experience, or really the most skills, doing or operating within those skills that they have. That's been pretty efficient for us. And even stuff like, picking up and dropping off parts to heat treating or delivering parts to customers. I think I said it before, my boss's mother-in-law, we have her, we pay her, like $300 a trip to come pick up or drop off or pick up parts, from heat treat or go deliver parts, that sort of thing. And it's worth it for us because even with guys that aren't super skilled, they still just do the basic stuff and are just starting to learn how to, operate machines and do setups. That's still more time that, they're doing something that's producing something. Even painting parts is still producing something. It's kind of dumb work, but it still has to be done. So they get to stay engaged with that stuff. And so, yeah, we could easily send them to go, a 3-hour round trip to go pick up or drop off parts for, $12, $15 an hour or whatever their labor rate is. But it's still worth it for us to spend $300 for somebody else to just handle it all for us, and those guys stay working.
And the mother-in-law is not going to come in and run parts, so you might as well make her do something else, right?
Exactly. Right.
Yep.
True.
Yeah. No, that's been really awesome to have, because we didn't used to have that. It was always one of us going. So that's been super helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
That kind of reminds me of, this goes back to 1984 when this, where I work, was founded. The old couple that started it back then, when they started it, basically had an agreement. Mr. Gallion would run the shop. He would make parts. He would machine parts, quote work, things like that. Mrs. Gallion, who sadly is no longer with us, she would handle the business side of things. And that was her forte. That's what she did for years for Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And it worked out well, because that meant that he could stay in the shop making parts and keeping work flowing, even though it was essentially a one-man business, just him for the longest time. But like if, worst case scenario, you do work for a company and they're not paying. Well, now you've got to take time out of your day to go beat down their door and try to get paid. And you're kind of losing on two fronts, because now you're not making any money. Especially, in Brad's case, he could leave a machine running for a while he goes and, bangs on somebody's door trying to get a check or whatever the case may be. That's worst case scenario. But back then, not so much. On a Bridgeport or an engine lathe, you're not going to be able to leave it running. So that probably helped him succeed a lot back in that day of just, okay, I'm going to be in here making parts. If you can handle the books, it just works out a whole lot better. So that's an interesting way to look at it. I've never thought of that either.
But it's the same thing, right? Like when a salesman walks in my door and I go downstairs, because our offices are upstairs from the front door and the shop floor is, if you take a quick right, some old salesmen walk onto the floor. And I'll come downstairs and find a salesman talking to one of my guys. I always tell, and I'll ask my guys after, I'll go deal with them. And they say, why wouldn't you send them to me? And they say, well, you're busy doing work. And I go, no, my job is to deal with these people so you guys can focus on your jobs. Yep. Don't fall on your sword trying to make my life easy. I'm doing what I got to do to keep you guys being able to do what you can do. And, it goes both ways. It's not, hiring a servant for your shop. It's you help the younger guys and the less experienced guys get experience. And that helps the guys who actually, are the only guys who can use something like a CamWorks or, an NX that's very inaccessible for someone just coming in. Maybe not very inaccessible. That might not be fair to say, but a complicated software, you can't take a guy off the street and drop him in there. And you're very rarely going to be able to grab a guy off the street as a skilled machinist and put him in that role. So it's all about freeing up guys to do what they're best at. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to throw at, because it's something that I see a lot of shops struggling with right now. Staffing, we all talk about it. There's not enough people coming in the trade. The experienced guys are they're leaving. It takes a little bit of a mentality shift, but, whether you're a shop with one guy looking to expand or whether you're a shop, with a few more guys looking to do more with the time you have, it's, I'm not saying anything revolutionary, by the way, it's just, it's a mentality switch a little bit.
Yeah. How many employees do you have?
So we have right now 8 people at our shop, including myself. So we have one admin, bookkeeper, kind of back end type of person. And then we have 6 guys on the floor and then myself. And I, these days, unfortunately, most of the time I'm bouncing up and down and in and out of the office, but 6 guys on the floor all the time. We have a production manager is one of them, a floor supervisor / lead machinist. So, I'm out of the office a lot with Practical Machinists. So my production manager, when I'm gone, becomes me. And then the lead programmer kind of becomes my production manager. It's an easy shift. And then we have, I guess, essentially the rest of them are varying levels of apprentices. One guy's actually, I think he's actually got 10 years. I forgot about that. But yeah, no, the other three are apprentices, so under 2.5 years. But it's good to have them. Somebody needs to run a machine. Somebody needs to learn. I don't want the guy making $45 an hour, pressing cycle start for 4 hours.
Yep. 100%.
True.
You sound like a slightly bigger version of our shop.
And honestly, if you saw it, you'd probably feel right at home.
Yeah. We're at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people now, including the owner, who's also a machinist, and is still making parts with us pretty much every day outside of, handling business stuff. I mean, he's kind of in your boat where he's back and forth between the office doing, business, doing business owner stuff. And, then also out in the shop with us programming and running lathes and stuff like that. But then it's me who I don't really know what I would be called. I'm like shop supervisor, lead program. I don't know. I just keep the CNC shop working. And then we've got basically 2 apprentices and then one guy who's been with us for 2 years or 2.5 years. And the 2 apprentices, I guess you can call them apprentices. They're both trying to be machinists. So, they've been there for, one guy actually started on Wednesday. The other guy has been there 3 months now. So yeah, lots of young people and then a couple of experienced people. And I'm not that experienced. So, but I can make parts, and try to run the shop.
What more does the job call for, right?
Right.
You can make good parts. You're a machinist, period. And how many people are at your place now, Pat? You're about 30 or something, aren't you, between the 2 buildings?
Yeah, I mean, machine shop's probably 10 to 12, and then the fab shop's probably 20 or so. And then, I mean, there's 8 probably miscellaneous office people. So, yeah.
And I got to ask you a question, Pat, because I've followed you on Instagram forever, and I've been the most confused person on earth about what do you guys have at that shop? I've seen you run small manual lathes. I've seen you run giant manual lathes. One day you'll be popping holes in with a drill press, and then I see stuff running in some huge gantry mill or something. Like, what kind of layout is this place?
It's a mess, for one.
All the best shops are.
Oh, right. Man, we just got a little bit of everything. I mean, I'll go back to what I just mentioned about our owner. I mean, he's 83, still comes down to the shop a few times a week, and he's got a very, very old school mentality. I mean, he has 50 something years of machining experience. So I would say probably more than all 4 of us put together.
Pretty close.
I think that's yeah.
Hey, I got 20 years, Pat. Remember that? I'm old.
Right, that's true. Yeah,
I'm 14 now. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
We might have him.
Might be there with him.
Yeah, we'll
probably
be
taking a
close.
fist fight.
I got a whopping 4.
But with that, like he came up in the 50s and the 60s where everything was manual. Everything the little bit of automated machinery you had ran off of a tape. Or cams and things like that. Not our cam, but a mechanical cam.
Like the screw machine type.
Right. And
I'm not that old. I've never ran a tape machine.
I don't believe you.
I've seen them. I've had machines that run them, but I've never ran them.
How old are you, Ian?
I'm 35. I turned 36 this year. I'm an 88. Are you older than me, Brad? I think you are. 2 years?
I just turned 38 last Saturday.
So yeah, you're an 86.
86. Yeah.
What are you guys? This is always interesting to me because once you hit like 30, everybody just looks the same.
Yeah.
I'm totally.
Pat could be our kid. Pat's a child.
I mean,
Pat's older than me.
Youngest, but, I was gonna say not by much, but yeah.
I'm 28 or 29.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get old like us, you need to grow these beards to cover all the wrinkles. That's why Brad and I are like this. I'm still trying to make mine look like Brad's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could.
I just don't shave at all, ever.
Yeah. I need to grow mine back out. No, I don't grow a beard like Brad. Nobody really in my family does, but more Ian's ballpark there.
Get careful what you say here. Careful.
Yeah. I don't think I could grow one as good as you. I grow a good mustache, but that's about it.
Same.
This is not as good as it may look. It's a horrible abomination.
I can get a good neck beard going.
Oh, yeah. If neck beards, if they gave gold medals out for those, I'd be cleaning up these Olympics.
There you go. Yeah, you could be.
All my hair's everywhere else.
I just got to go hang out the Amish. Right? You'll fit right in.
There's a lot of them up around here. I had to dodge 3 horse-drawn buggies on my way home from work today. Not even kidding.
Nice.
Oh wow.
Nice. Mennonites, I think, actually. But this is a funny story. Do you know what Mennonites have and a lot of Amish have? I didn't know this until recently. We were getting some parts. We were looking to find a water jet supplier. And because we had some parts where if you lasered them, they would end up bending, so they were thin. So we were looking for a water jet, so at least there's no heat put into the part. And this one company we were dealing with goes, hey, use these guys. I can't remember their name. They're up in Gray County. I said, sure. So I sent them an RFQ. Parts came in. They were great. I didn't know that what actually was happening there was the Amish or the Mennonites had put a water jet inside one of their barns, and they hired a guy to actually run it and answer the phone and, program the cam, but it was an Amish operation. And I have no idea how that works, but apparently that's a very common thing in the more rural areas. I've never seen that before.
So is it an Amish guy, or they hired a non-Amish guy or non-Mennonite to do the work?
Correct. Well, see, I don't know what they were doing. It depends what kind of, because there's Mennonites, there's Hutterites, there's Amish with the different rules from what they can do. Maybe they can load and unload the machines, and someone else has to press it.
I think the Mennonites can use electricity.
So here's the question. Let's say that all the lights went out tomorrow. Everything goes bad. No more electricity. With your shop as it stands right now, Pat, could you guys, well, let's not say no electricity. Let's say computers all get fried. How screwed are you guys? Or are you guys going to rebuild society? I think you guys might be okay.
Yeah, man. We've got so much like manual equipment in there. We have, 7 manual lathes, 4 manual mills, manual HPM. I mean, there's a lot. We probably have as much manual equipment as we do CNC equipment. And mind you, very little of it gets ran. Hardly at all. I mean, we have 1 manual machinist, and then I'll go back there and play around if I feel like it, plus the owner. But no, I mean, we do maintain a lot more manual equipment, I think, than a lot of other shops. And it is handy. Like you guys, I mean, our first episode, we talked about walk-in jobs and yahoos and stuff like that. The manual equipment sometimes the best way to get stuff done quick, which means cheap, But yeah, so you asked me about all the stuff I post on my Instagram page. A lot of that is not necessarily stuff that I do. It might be something that someone else is doing, someone else is running. A lot of it I had a hand in. I mean, more than likely, if it's running on a CNC, either I programmed it or our other programmer handled it. And that job ain't getting done without a programmer. So manual stuff, a lot of times I might be doing it. All the menagerie of grinders that we have, I would wager to say we're probably one of just a handful of shops in North America, I would say, that have a jig grinder, especially a manual jig grinder. Have any of you 3 guys ever seen one in person?
I've seen it. I've never used one.
Wow. Wow.
I've only ever worked in CNC shops, so.
Right. So, I mean, and
we got surface grinders.
In a way, that makes it seem like outdated and, why are you keeping these things around? But man, I'll tell you, if you're not in a spot where you want to invest in a $500,000 machine that can hold the tolerances that a jig grinder can, or cylindrical grinder, or whatever the case may be. I mean, both of the more jig grinders we have are from like 1968, and they still work amazingly.
If you take care of them, they'll take care of you.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of work. No, it's gotten less and less over the years, but especially with I mean, our owner. I mean, he was a jig grinder man for years at Oak Ridge. There's a lot of work that's come through the shop that we couldn't have done without it, and that by itself, I think, lends a lot of value to a piece of equipment. If you couldn't do a job and bring in revenue without that piece of equipment, it's that's worth something. Obviously, it's got to offset each other because you don't want to spend $100,000 for a machine or whatever, and then it might bring in $10,000 a year. That doesn't work, but
And
yeah,
people write off the old equipment, but it's got a place.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't really have a place in our shop. We don't really make enough We don't really make any parts or do any repairs where it's going to be too beneficial for us. But the stuff that you do definitely is good to have around.
Sure.
And I think it's one of those things too, where if you have it, you're going to find a way to use it.
Absolutely.
Or like if something were to come in where I'd be like, man, a jig grinder would be perfect for that, but we don't have it. Sorry about your luck. I don't want to touch it. I got parts to make.
Sure. Or you could send it my way.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think we would be kind of screwed if computers went out. We have one manual mill, actually two manual lathes. One of them is just kind of stuck in the old section of the shop off to the side. And then we have one in the CNC shop. And so we actually sold off. Our shop used to be all manual. And so we've gotten to the point where we're pretty much all CNC. I try to avoid manual operations almost at all costs. It doesn't always make sense to avoid it. Sometimes it's just easier and more efficient to actually just go face something off real quick on a manual lathe. But as much as we can, I try to avoid doing anything manually. That way, and I don't know. Everybody's got a different mentality about it. I always try to approach any part as if we're going to make it again, and approaching it like that, I try to make everything done, or make it to where everything's done on the CNC with a simple setup, or as simply as possible. Mm-hmm. That way, the next time it comes around, you get the same quality as you did the first time. We have the information already. We have setup sheets, all that stuff. So it's as simple as following some instructions, and then you're making parts. And then once you get that machine making parts, you go get another machine making parts. And so we really just keep a manual mill and a manual lathe for, if you need to square something up real quick or some sort of shop project or modify a tool or something random like that. So yeah, we do have some surface grinders too, although only one of them's even hooked up. So we'd definitely be screwed. Pat would be way better off than we would.
And Brad, am I interpreting this correctly that you'd be busting out your hammer and chisel? Is that the manual equipment you got in your place? That's it?
I do. So I do still have my Bridgeport Easy Track. It's actually the first machine I bought in 2013. I haven't ran it in a few years. I don't know why I hold on to it. Every now and then I'll get something that an odd setup where I need to hang something off. And that was kind of what I've held on to it for. But I moved it about a year and a half ago when I got my horizontal, and it's stuck in the corner now. I don't even have electrical to it. I keep telling myself to sell it, but I'm pretty nostalgic. I don't know if you've noticed in the group chat the shit I've shared. I have everything from my childhood. You name it, I have it somewhere. Mm-hmm. So it kind of sits back there, and I see it, and it's like, well, that's where I started. I still have my first machine. It'll sit there. So,
and you know what? The day you sell it is going to be that next day. A job is going to come in that you absolutely need it for.
Yep,
exactly.
Sure.
It's how this stuff goes. I had an old boat anchor lathe that was a 4-inch chuck through, probably about 15 feet long. I don't even know where we got this thing, and it weighs like 3 tons. And we didn't use it for probably 2-3 years. And finally, my old man, this is when he was still here, he said, here at the shop, my father's still alive, don't worry. He got tired of looking at it. So he was like, let's get rid of this thing. I think he sold it for like basically above scrap value, barely. And the amount of jobs that have come through my shop, and I have a big lathe. I have a couple of big lathes. The amount of jobs that have come through my shop that thing would have made quick work of, and we're flipping things around, or we're trying to use 8 different ways to do something. When you get rid of it, it doesn't cost much to keep something except for the space, which can be important. But we have a 1965 radial drill press in my place. The ones that you used to pop the holes in the corners of dies with.
Yep.
Saying we want to get rid of it, but every so often you need the balls that machine has in order to drive, a big tap, or, hey, listen, you just got to pop a couple holes real quick on a big plate. They're not critical. You use it and you go, well, I guess it's earned its life. Its stay of execution for the next 2 years because, it's one of those things. So
I actually I bought a radial arm drill, a massive one. It was, I think the table on it was like 48 by 48 or something. I got it at an auction. Got it at an auction, and I stuffed it in my garage when I first built this building. I was like, I'll need it someday. I'll need a plate. I need to flip on its side. I need to get some side holes. And it sat for 2 years, and I'm like, I just need to get the hell out of here. And I sold it, and exactly like you said, I think a week later, I was like, came across a job. I'm like, shit, if I still had that, I could do this. I don't even think I ever hooked the thing up.
No, but
But you could have.
So with your Easy Track, what would be the benefit of getting rid of it? Would you put something in its place? Because I mean, you're in a similar boat as we are. Granted, your shop's definitely tighter than ours is, but we've got a tight shop. So real estate's a premium. So if it's not doing us any good, we could justify getting rid of it. It's gone.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Just the real estate, just having the space for something. Whether it's just, even a coolant barrel could sit there.
Yeah.
Rather than just trying to stuff it where it is right now or anything. I could probably put my surface grinder back there that I actually use quite a bit and have it in the corner rather than up front right by a machine.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to buy something new to go there if you get rid of it.
Right. I'm definitely not buying a turning center, though. I can tell you that.
come on, man. I think you're on you a little bit. It's like
I don't
want to wear them, but after you put them on, they feel pretty comfy, don't they?
Little bit. I try to avoid running my turning center. I'm not a fan of it. I got one job that it's strictly set up for, and everything's left in there. I run it probably 3 times a year. I actually had it up for sale for a while because it was one of them things where I got quite a bit of turning RFQs, and I always turned them away. And I ended up sending them to another shop for a while. And I was like, well, if I continue getting this work, I'm going to buy one and bring it in-house. So then I bought one, brought one job in-house, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this.
This is awful. And do any of you guys have any kind of EDM, wire EDM, sync EDM? Or you guys?
Nope.
No.
We used to have a wire. It was so problematic, and we bought it for dye work. But the problem is nobody in the shop or in the business knew dye work. So it just did not work out. And like I say, the machine was problematic. So, I think we had it for a couple of years, didn't make any money with it, sold it, and basically took that money and put it into a turning center, like a real shop, Brad. You're what, around here, you're what we call a millbilly.
Millbilly.
A millbilly?
Yes.
A millbilly.
Interesting.
Nothing wrong with millbillies.
You want to give a
too? Yeah.
You got a definition for that? Can you elaborate?
Just a guy that fancies himself a machinist, but he only runs a mill. That's much else to it.
I feel attacked.
I'm going to put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Millbilly. Bring him down MTS. I want one.
All right.
Yes. We
I'm gonna have some made.
Can I keep all my teeth?
Backstory on that: we had this guy from Indiana. He was mainly a lathe guy. He was. There ain't no two ways about it. But he made fun of some of our other CNC operators because he could run about anything. Lathe, mill, whatever. Lathes were kind of his thing. I don't know what that says about the guy, but no, he come up with that, and it fits well because okay, he's from up north. I guess it's not up north to Ian, but whatever. And
everything's down south.
Right,
everything's down south to me.
Yeah. He's from up north. He's making fun of all these dumb Southerners around here, hillbillies, millbillies. They just kind of float together. I'll be honest, though, this is extremely unlikely, but if I were to ever start a shop, I would absolutely start it with a mill because unless you spend huge money on like a live tool sub spindle y-axis turning center, or God forbid an actual mill turn, you are not going to get the versatility out of a lathe that you can a mill at all.
No.
Yep.
You can make round stuff on a mill. It's not very easy to make not round stuff on a lathe.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
We'll say,
Unless you have a
I can
click
buy
round
my
harness.
shafts pre-ground. I can bring them in, pop them in a mill, and do whatever I need to do. Can't really do the same vice versa, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes that's a smarter option too. Might cost you a little more, but it's amazing to me the cost difference between making round parts on a mill versus making round parts on a lathe. I mean, obviously the lathe is made to make the round parts, but we'll use one cutting edge on a $7 insert and rough out who knows how many pounds of material of steel on multiple parts. Whereas if we were to do it on a mill, which we do sometimes, because we've got a pretty big gap between our small CNC lathe and our big CNC lathe. Small one's an 8-inch chuck, big one's a 24-inch chuck. So when stuff kind of falls into that like 10-inch range, 12-inch range, we typically just do it all in the mill. Or if it goes to like the 24, like really like 25-inch and up range, we do it on our big mill. But yeah, so we do a lot of stuff, just a lot of round parts on the mill, and roughing that stuff out takes, a lot of end mills, a lot of high feed mill inserts, that sort of thing. So, I might burn through one or two roughing end mills on a run of parts, and $100 an end mill, you're talking $200 versus that one insert that would have made it through it all on one corner, roughing it all out for $7.
that rough the last job and the one before that somehow too. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. We've got the inserts we've been using have been pretty good. So we got stuff pretty dialed in. I mean, we do a ton of 1018 and 836, and which isn't anything insane anyways, but we get some pretty good life out of that stuff.
Can I ask a question for you guys? I'd like to go around the table because we were talking about this in the group chat a little bit the other day, but I like to hear your thoughts in public and a little more elaborated. I'm looking to bring in some heat shrink, and the second I said that, I know that Brad went, "Oh my God, I love it." Have you guys used heat shrink? What's your experience with it? When should you use it? When should you not use it? Because I could buy 100 of these things, or I could buy 5. What's the benefit? Obviously, I know the run out. Obviously, I know you can push them harder, but practical experiences. What do you guys think?
I started with hydraulic holders, just looking for something better. And I didn't know this when I first bought them, that they're not made for heavy roughing. So I had a lot of issues with my shank holders, pull out, and I ruined a few of them, and I reached out to Shunk, and they made me aware that it's not made for heavy roughing. So then I actually think it was John Fetty told me to try some heat shrinks. He always talked about them, and he's like, "Well, I don't got a heat shrink machine. What am I going to do?" And then I saw a lot of people using a torch. So I think Haas had a sale, and I bought 2. And I threw a 1/2-inch end mill in there, and I ran a job that had like a 30-hour cycle time on it, and it came out. It was fucking amazing. I was like, cool. All right, well, I'm going to buy some more. This, torch was easy. Probably took a couple minutes, but I'm not swapping tools that much. So, I mean, I think I have probably 50, 60 now. My end mills all go into heat shrink holders. Once in a great while, I'll throw a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch in an ER holder, but other than that, everything goes in heat shrink holder. And I mean, with the Haas prices, I mean, I just buy them. Yeah. I prefer to have them all set up, ready to go. Yep. I got a heat shrink machine at an auction, so that, I mean, I'd recommend one if you can afford to buy one. They're great, but you can get by with the torch. I wouldn't spend $20,000 on a heat shrink machine, but
you can also use a handheld induction heater off Amazon.
Yep,
for
handheld,
$150.
Yep. But I haven't had any issues with my heat shrink holders. I have my first one that I bought 5 years ago. I still use it.
Oh wow!
I've read some people on the forums will say that you only get so many heat cycles with them. I mean, I'm not swapping tools every day, but I still have my same one. I've never ruined a heat shrink holder. Yeah, I ruined 4 shank holders, 4 hydraulic holders.
This is the first time I've ever heard that you're not supposed to rough heavily with hydraulic holders too, because I was doing that and I had the exact same issue. So I'm glad you told me, because no one else did.
Yeah. I had a 3/4 inch tool pull out, probably a 1/2 inch, and I didn't know. I was something I set up and I walked away. I came back and I was like, what the fuck happened? And I assumed I programmed it wrong. So I'm sitting here running around checking everything. And I'm like, there's no way it pulled out. Like, it's a hydraulic holder. It's not going to pull out. And I checked it. I was like, damn, fuck. Here
I
we
did
go.
the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a massive plate. I think it was like a $1,200 plate. It was like 4 inches by 18 by like 36 or
man.
something.
Bummer.
Yeah.
That's an
So
expensive lesson.
I won't use them for roughing. I got 2 hydraulic holders left. They're just ball end mills is all I put in them now. I have thrown in a spot drill in one once. I think John Fetty stopped by and he was like, "What the hell are you doing with that?" I'm like, "I just needed to throw a 1/2-inch one in quick." So, but I highly recommend the heat shrink holders.
Wow.
I love them.
So we wanted to dip our toe in heat shrink and really see if it was something that was going to work for us, or see if it was worth the hype. So probably about the time that you bought you had your big order of Haas shrink fits. We did ours as well. It was Black Friday last year. And there's also, not only did they have it ridiculously cheap because it was Black Friday, they also had a 25 or 20% discount for your first purchase or something. So you put that on top of it. I mean, we were getting 1/2-inch shrink fit holders for like $60 a piece.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we're like, all right, we'll try it out. We lose $1,000 on all these holders. Not a huge deal, like in the grand scheme, that's not a ton of money to get into new work or new tool holding. So anyways, we bought, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 holders. I couldn't tell you. And I like them. I would like to try some better holders before I gave an honest opinion about shrink fit. We do have some Technics holders. We bought a Technics shrink fit machine, and it came with the deal. It was like 5 holders with it, but I didn't get just generic 1/2-inch, 3/8, whatever holders. I got, like some Slim Pro holders where they're really thin walled, so you can get, really close up to something, whatever, if you got to reach down inside a tight area. Figured if we're getting them free, let's get the weird stuff that we're not going to want to buy some other time. Now, the main difference that I've noticed between what I'd normally rough and finish with and the shrink fits are chatter. So what I normally rough and finish with are Parlec Eros holders, EROS. So it's similar to an ER collet or an ER holder, or I guess it's almost like a cross between SK and ER. So it's got a steeper taper to it than an ER does. And it's got a smooth collet nut. You use, you tighten the collet with one of those like one-way bearing handles. So it grabs the smooth collet nut and tightens and all that. They're really, really good holders. Really good run out. I've never had anything pull out at all, and I'm not really easy on things. Very good vibration dampening, I've noticed out of those. Definitely better than ER.
Are they actually specifically vibration dampening, or are they just, that's the benefit of, so yeah, they're not even specifically, because I know some of these brands have, the cat's ass vibration damping. You're seeing it even with just the run-of-the-mill heat shrink.
Yep. So, this is the Eros holder, Parlec Eros holders, like very good vibration dampening out of those. But the Haas shrink fit holders, roughing with steel and even finishing sometimes with steel, like the normal RPMs I'd run with my tools, I have to reduce it down for it to not chatter with the shrink fits. So I think part of that is just because it's such a lightweight holder. There's not much mass there. That's probably really not part of it. That's probably why it happens. So I think I'd like to try something a little bit higher quality, something like the Heimer. He said great things about the Heimer. The only bad thing I hear about Heimer is the price, but also whenever you hear people talk about Heimer that have Heimer, it's nothing but good things. So sounds like it's kind of worth the price.
I had a meeting with Heimer yesterday. They came by my shop. I will tell you, I saw the pricing on that. I think their biggest problem they have right now is they're not telling people what their things cost more openly, because it's way less than I expected.
Really?
Way less.
Oh,
way
really?
less. Man, I've been to the Ingehausen facility where they produce these things, and when I was told the price, you guys make them for that? Like, I've seen these things perform, so I'm not going to say what's into them, but take a peek.
Yeah, I may have to.
Wow.
Because I do.
Yeah, I would say so. I have my Heimers are 3/16 and smaller.
Yeah,
and I just they're noticeably better than the other brands that I have. The heat cycle to get a tool out, get a tool in is faster. It seems like it cools down faster. I've heard some people, or I've read on some of the forums that they use a different type of material that's better. I've never looked into it. I don't care as long as it works for me type of thing. But the price is quite a bit more expensive. I think the ones that I have are like $300. They're not terrible.
I've heard the material thing before too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Technics has said the same.
My red lines under 1/4 inch, they're not through spindle coolant. The Heimers are, so that's a plus there. And I know Haas doesn't make them under 1/4 inch either. So
yep.
I've been told the Haas ones are YG holders, and I've looked at the YG ones under 1/4 inch for through spindle coolant, but they're significantly more too. So if I'm going to spend the money, I might as well just buy the Heimer ones.
Yeah.
True. So,
yeah.
I will say, even with, like I said, we primarily run steel, and I've noticed some chatter issues and stuff with it. Even still, I'm still going to invest in shrink fit for things like I'm about to buy a bunch of shrink fit holders for thread mills. I'm going to put, because we do a lot of NPTs, so I use carbide thread mills for those. And so everything from 27 NPT up to 11.5, I'm going to get a thread mill for every single one. Well, we already have thread mills for all of that. But anyways, thread mills for every single one with heat shrink holders for every single one. So when you need it, you walk up, grab it, and everybody knows these don't come out of these holders unless they break or they're worn.
Yep.
And so then they're always in a hole. Yeah, exactly. Break your kneecap.
Or they're doing push-ups.
Yeah, right. That's my plan with that. And we also have like a dedicated area with our tool storage. I have like a big rack with a bunch of shelves for all of our tool holders to go into. And I have a section just for thread mills. And so whenever you're done with the thread mill and you take it out of the machine, you leave it in the holder, you just stick it in that section where the thread mills go. So even if it's in an ER holder or whatever, typically they stay in the holder, but sometimes people need to rob the holder. So I'm going to get dedicated. I'd like to get more thread mills, but we really just do NPT right now.
So I listened to a podcast recently. It was a Jim Carr podcast where he talked about starting up a machine shop. And he started the podcast by saying something like, don't be fooled. It's not easy to start a machine shop. It's harder than ever, which I completely disagree with. I disagreed with a lot of what he said on this podcast. And here in Ian, you got a machine from 1994, which tells you don't need a new machine. You can get an old machine and make it work. You can get by with pretty minimal. One thing that he said was to start a machine shop, a decent 3-axis used machine is $100K right off the bat. I mean, what do you think your 94 machine's worth?
What's the scrap value? $1,000.
And it makes you money.
To go sell it. Yeah, it makes me money. I have a 94 and a 94 and a 96, and they run every day, and they produce parts that are in tolerance, and they go at the door. Same as my BF4SS, which is, much more than that.
Even still, I see Doosan's and stuff like that going at auction, 5 years old for 70, 80 grand.
Yeah, I just saw it was a 2005 VF2 SSYT go at auction like 3 weeks ago for 16 grand. I wish I would have bought it. But I don't have space. I should have got rid of that Bridgeport.
Yeah.
But I mean, he made that decent 3-axis used $100K. My 4 machines combined, I spent $104K for them, all 4 of them combined. And I mean, I mentioned in the last one, my highest year, I did $600K. I didn't even have my horizontal that year. I didn't even have my turning center. I had a VF2 SS and a VF3 SS. So I think, if for someone looking to start a machine shop, and I did it, Ian, I know you took over a shop, but I remember sitting there as an employee scrolling through. Okay, I'm going to buy, Haas wasn't even on my list. I didn't even consider a Haas at the time. I was, machine's going to be $150K. Can I afford this? Nope, I can't afford this. How the hell am I going to afford a $150,000 machine with no customers? It's not going to happen. And I made it through the process. Me and a buddy I worked with, we went back and forth, sending each other screenshots of machine prices. And ultimately, I dropped down to a used Haas because it was 35 grand. And there is a lot more to buying a machine. We're just talking about tool holders. One thing Jim Carr mentioned was 100 Cat 40 holder is going to cost you $200. Well, you can hop on Haas and get heat shrink holders for $70. Yeah, heat shrink machine is going to cost you a few grand, but you can use a Amazon cam.
Yeah, you talking about the handheld induction heater?
Yeah.
Yep.
What do them run?
I think it was $150.
So
It worked.
Wow.
Took about 1 minute to fully heat a holder to where you can pull a tool in and out. But hey, it worked. Also, something to go back to buying a machine real quick. If you buy a machine at auction, you're also paying the premium. What's it called? The buyer's premium.
Buyer's premium.
Yeah, and then you're also paying rigging.
Yep.
So don't forget that too. So even if you see a machine for 40, 50, 70 grand, whatever, you got to pay that buyer's premium, which is usually a percentage of the machine cost, and
typically
then whatever.
15%.
Yep. Which is
Also,
not
if you're buying a
insignificant.
machine, you're buying a machine for $100,000 that's used. I don't know if you guys, obviously, I think a lot of us have had interactions with buying used machines.
Yep.
A car, if you buy it used, obviously, you know what to look for. Hey, how do the tires look? How do the bearings sound? How does, is there burnt oil, blah, blah, blah. When it comes to a machine, you can look at it and, some guys can look at the paint on the inside and say, oh, yeah, it's been running steel, or, they can listen to the spindle and say it does this. You really have no idea what this machine has been doing. Has the guy ever done a proper maintenance on it? You can spend as much as you want to spend on a used machine, but it's not only are you paying all these things, it's not just 35 grand, or it's not just, 10 grand at an auction. Also, what are you getting? Is that auction down the road? Yeah. Can you look at that machine before you go get it? There's buying used machines is a minefield.
Yeah. With buying a used machine, do you get to go pull the way covers back and look at, look at everything, look at the guides and all that, or the ways? And do you get to make sure all your way lube lines are functioning properly? Do you get to do a ball bar test, or test your backlash before you buy it? Do you get to check the spindle run out before you buy it? No, you don't get to do any of that. You get it how you get it whenever you're doing it at an auction.
I'd recommend asking as much questions as you can, and if you can go look at it, you can go run it, go do it. I bought my VF3 SS sight unseen. I bought it off some website, a reseller in California. I had them ship it to me. I had them send me as many videos as could. And back to your rigging comment, rigging's not terribly expensive. That machine from California to Minnesota, it was. But to rig that here, it was $2,000. They brought it out
that's
here,
it?
and then I had.
Wow, that's surprising.
I had a rigger. I actually had it brought to a rigging company, a local one, and then they brought it to me and brought it in, and it was like another $750. So for under $3,000, they brought it here. They leveled it too, set it in place, leveled it.
Well, one question. And so this is something I think about because of the accessibility to our shop. If you're starting your own shop and you're doing it at home, what's the accessibility to get it up your driveway to your house, right? So our shop is up a windy driveway up a mountain. And so, there's actually two driveways that come up. There's a main driveway that we use, then a driveway that we have an easement on from the property behind us. That's a straight driveway. But to get a machine to our shop, we have to unload it on the road from the semi, load it onto a tow truck, drive the tow truck up the hill to our shop, drive the forklift up the hill to our shop, and then unload it up there, get it into the shop, right? So rigging for us is not cheap. You're looking $3,500, $5,000.
Where is this shop? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
No, is it on the edge of a mountain? Is it up at a
No. Really, it's just a big
possible.
Really, it's just a giant hill, right? Say mountain, that's what they call it, but it ain't a mountain. But it's a big hill. We plan on moving at some point. We need more room. Right now, our CNC shop is a 40 by 60 shop with 6 machines in it. So it's kind of tight.
That's tight.
That's very tight. So now we are able to keep like our saw, basically everything outside of CNC machining. We're able to keep outside of that shop because we have so many little add-on shops. So like we have an entire saw room that's its own thing. We have a grinding room. We have a welding shop separate. But the office is separate. So, and then like another small area for packing or shipping and receiving and all that. So anyways, we've got extra space for all this extra stuff. If we were to put everything in a 40 by 60, it wouldn't work at all. So when you think 40 by 60, think just 6 machines plus 2 manual machines plus our tooling. And that's it. So, but anyways, rigging, it all depends on where you are. So say you're trying to start a shop, think about that. If you're in a difficult to access area, rigging may be more expensive for you.
Yeah. And something I did, because I got, I didn't want to pay for riggers. I have 2 forklifts. They can both lift 16,000 pounds. So
We've done that with me and my neighbor.
Yep. So I mean, I can have a machine delivered here and I can unload it myself.
Yep.
And I've moved my machines. It's right. I've moved my machines myself. I like to rearrange quite often. So I sit here and stare like, if I move my machine across there, I'd gain this space. So,
Yeah. And you can probably live.
Pat, if you were going to put one machine in your new barn dominium you're putting up to start your own shop, given what Brad was talking about, let's not talk about $100,000. Let's not talk about brands. Let's not talk about anything. But what kind of machine would you recommend that you would put in yourself for someone who is starting out? Are you talking a small 3-axis mill? Are you talking something with 4-axis capability? What would you be looking for?
I would look at it one of 2 ways. Me personally, I would probably go like with a 40/20 machine, 3-axis mill. 4-axis would be great. But I'm in that mindset kind of like Brad is, of like, find one that's in decent shape for cheap, set it up, get it going, make money. And then if you're making good money, you can pump that into something else. So, I mean, I don't think you could go wrong with a 40/20 mill, Cat 40 mill, or BT 40 mill, 10,000 RPM, 12,000 RPM, something like that. 24 station tool changer. Obviously the more bells and whistles, the better, but like you could do, what do they call those? 3D tasters instead of Renishaw probes if you didn't want to spend that money. That kind of thing. That would be probably what I would do if somehow that ever happened. In this area, I actually think there's a lack of shops with 5-axis machines. And if a body could find a way to get a 5-axis machine, even a small one, I'm talking even a 3-axis mill with a like a 3+2 deal, 3-axis plus a trunnion or something. That would get you a leg up, because one side to this that we probably haven't covered is the concept of a race to the bottom, right? And I know, Brad, you have dealt with that phrase. We've talked about this before. If you have a garage shop,
I hear it all the time.
I guarantee it. If you have a garage shop and you have a bunch of cheap used machines and you're charging, you don't, but if people think you're charging $50 an hour for machine work, you're ruining the local market for everybody. And I'll say it's pretty easy. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's not that difficult for some guy to go out and get a used Tormach, Haas, whatever, and put it in their garage and try to make parts with it. But the people that can actually stick with that, like you have, you've been at it for over 10 years now. So that's one thing. And in that case, obviously you're not, if you were ruining the local market by being so cheap, you probably wouldn't be able to make it.
Right.
You wouldn't be a business. Yeah.
I would argue it's easier than ever to start a machine shop now in 2024.
Yep.
I get the argument. It's a race to the bottom for us home shop guys, but at the same time, I'm not charging $7,500. But for me, I could, if I really wanted to, I could. I went into business to be comfortable, but a big part of it was going into business and be debt free. Get the machines paid for, so I don't have to worry about making $250, $300 an hour. I don't need a $500,000 machine. I don't need a $100,000 machine. I need machines that are going to produce the work that I get. When you go into business machining, some people, maybe you got customers lined up. You don't know what your customers are going to be. You don't know if you're going to get 100% titanium work or 100% aluminum work. You have to start somewhere. Buy something. I said it in the last episode. Most of these guys that are sitting at shops that are like, I want to buy a machine, I can't afford it. I can't afford this $55,000 machine. They got a $55,000 truck that is losing value.
Yeah.
When they could buy a $55,000 machine and they can make money. But they sit there and think they can't buy a Haas because of what everybody says about them. They have to buy a $150,000 Akuma. Well, no, you don't have to.
Right.
I mean, you could buy a 94 Haas and make a killing. You know, and in my opinion, if you are mechanically inclined, you could buy a good used machine and fix it yourself. Between my 4 machines, I got probably $4,000 in maintenance over the last 5 years. I can drive down to Haas, pick up any part, fix it myself. I've never been down for more than 2 days.
Yeah.
I mean, a perfect example is look at the Wolfingers who do Becoming a Practical Machinist. What do they have? 97, I think. I think it's a VF3 with a pallet changer. It's the exact same thing you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I would recommend don't go into business to get rich.
Right.
Find a happy medium. You're going to be machining whether you're working for somebody or not. If you can find a happy medium and you can do it in your own garage, you can build a pole barn on your property and make the same amount of money and control your hours. That's a win right there. And that was my biggest part going in was as an employee, I was missing out on my kids' football, baseball. I was trying to race home to get there, leaving at 4:00, trying to get somewhere by 5:00 and missing something. I haven't missed in 5 years. I haven't missed a practice or a game for either of my kids. And last year I started coaching. So now I coach baseball, basketball, and football. And I haven't missed anything. I mean, I'm not here to get rich. I'm here to be comfortable.
I feel like there's 2 camps. Like whenever you're talking about train of thought, as far as how to start a business or how to start a machine shop. Anyways, it seems like there's 2 camps. Like there's the camp that you're in, where it's like I'm going to get a machine that I can afford. I'm not going to be in a ridiculous amount of debt. I can go ahead and start making money, and everything I make, I pretty much keep. But the downside of that is buying a machine that you can afford isn't going to be a new machine that's going to be not saying you have reliability issues, but a new machine that is extremely reliable, never going to have a problem, super accurate. You're getting a used machine. You don't really know what you're getting. You might have to replace a spindle as soon as you get it. Granted, if you're buying something like a Haas, for example, it's a smart move because you can get the parts. They're accessible. They're not super expensive. You can repair it yourself, whatever. So anyways, you go and buy a machine that you can afford, that you can fix yourself, even if that means you're going to have some downtime. Or you can go the route of buying something new and financing it. And I think the train of thought there is, I buy a machine that's new. It's got all the bells and whistles that I need. It's got the probing, so I have some automation there. It's got the tools that are built into it. I don't have to worry about, doing anything manually, which means I can be more efficient. I can press some buttons and then the machine does the stuff for me. Or I can inspect my parts, do in-process inspections while my parts are running. And, as in let the probe inspect your part, adjust your wear offset, and do all that for you, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you have some of that stuff, but you've got the reliability, you've got the accuracy. And so you're set up for success machine-wise. But at the same time, you're paying $2, $3, $4,000 a month for a machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and I think it's like a big part of it is that. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's like, what's the trade-off? Are you going to make enough money to offset that just by getting that different machine that has a few more features?
Exactly.
Is that going to be good enough? Or I don't know. I think you would end up in the long run, it really, I guess in the short run, if you're talking about starting a business, you're not even really worried about the long run yet. You're just trying to get off the ground. It's going to be more affordable for you to get that cheaper machine and just figure out how to fix it yourself and spend $30,000, $40,000 on a machine.
And that's the thing. Why are you worrying about $100,000 machine when you have no customers?
Right.
Why are you worrying about probing when you are not making chips? I understand. It's difficult because I see it both ways. You're 100% right. If you have the money on hand and you can buy a beautiful machine, you are going to be more efficient. You're going to produce parts faster. You're going to make better use of your time. You're not going to be chasing tolerances, everything that goes into that. But when guys look at that and they see that as a barrier to entry, I can't afford a $150,000 machine. I can't afford, a German this or a, Korean that or a Japanese that. Your issue isn't the machine. The issue is you don't have a business. You need to be able to make chips. You need to be able to run your shop for 2 months. What if you buy that $100,000 machine as a 3-axis mill, and then you find out the niche that's really missing in your market is 5-axis? Great. You're sunk. You got to get rid of that thing, get a new one. Or what if you buy a really nice 5-axis and you find out, shit, if I had just bought a live tooling lathe, there's so much work around here. It's guys like to throw these barriers up in their own way to say, I can't get started because I don't, as we were talking about right here, I don't have $100,000 to put in a machine. Do you have to? Maybe you buy something that's reasonable and you test the market. I throw a $30,000 or $20,000, maybe even a $15,000 20-year-old machine in my garage. Brad, when you were talking about it earlier, you didn't jump in with both feet and immediately say, I put machines in my garage, I quit my job, now it's sink or swim. That's a terrible idea if you had done that, right? Like it's, you need to feel it out. And then as you got the work, you said, okay, like you said, I'm making X amount on my job right now. I got 3 times that sitting in my garage at home right now. Put a machine in your garage, get the cheap one. Hey, listen, it gives you that opportunity to pivot and say, I want that machine. Or, hey, do you know what? This machine's actually making me money. Let's get 2 of them. It's the barrier to entry is so much lower, like you said, than it's ever been.
2 spindles. 2 spindles is a big deal.
It is.
That's something else to think about.
I had one, obviously, and I remember the first issue I ever had was probably about a year into it. I thought it was my spindle went, and it was on a Thursday. And I had a job that was due Monday, and I was like, shit, what do I do? I called productivity. I was like, hey, I need a guy out here. I need to come fix it, come look at it, figure it out. And they're like, well, we're like 2 weeks out. I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? So I ended up pulling the spindle out, and it ended up being my drawbar. But my thought Thursday night was, my spindle's bad, I'm going to hop on a plane out to California. I'm going to buy a spindle, and it's going to be a carry-on back. I'm going to put it back in Friday. I'm going to run this part. Luckily, it was a drawbar. But I called productivity. I was like, hey, you got a drawbar in stock? Yeah. I said, can I be there in 30 minutes? Yeah, it'll be ready. I drove down there, picked it up, came home, put it in. Friday morning by 9 o'clock, I was back up and running.
Yeah. And that right there is an example of what it takes to start your own machine shop.
Yes.
I mean,
and you got to be willing to do shit like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's, for me as a small shop, having one machine, downtime sucks. If your machine's down for 4 days because you're waiting for something, you're losing money.
Yeah.
So part of me is glad I went the Haas route, because I don't think I've ever had to wait more than an hour to go get a part.
Right.
I haven't had much issues, but even my horizontal, I bought it at auction. I didn't know the spindle was bad. I got it fired up. Spindle was bad. Shit. Well, all right. And I went and picked one up same day, threw it in myself.
Location plays into that.
Location. Yeah. And I would look into that if you're buying a machine. If you're looking to buy a Mazak and you don't have a dealer nearby, don't buy a Mazak.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get service.
That's probably the biggest thing I've heard when people talk about what brand of machine to get. It's all about what support you can get. How fast can you get parts? What parts are available? Or what technicians are available? If you can get X machine, but their technicians are, stationed out of a place that's 7 hours, 8 hours from you, and so it's going to take, and they're backed up all the time. Then
and they charge a lot of money for those road hours.
They sure do.
$35 an hour for them on the road. Yep.
So do we. We're at $125 an hour. Yep. Yeah,
I worked at a shop that bought a wire EDM. I don't know why they bought it. I think the dealer was in Minnesota, convinced them to buy it, but their tech was in Chicago. So every time it had an issue, he had to fly in. They had to pay for him to stay here. So he'd fly in, come diagnose the problem. Okay, well, we need this part. It's a few days out. Well, he flew home, and then he flew back the next week. So it's, that $400 part just cost $5,000.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually think last I heard they got rid of it.
I can see why.
So, and for the you brought up the race to the bottom thing. I'm big on just getting your machines paid for. I don't make it a race to the bottom. I'm not the cheapest quote. I know I'm high on a lot of stuff, but economy is questionable. If shit hits the fan, I can drop my rates. I'm not worried about a $2,000 payment. I don't want to say I don't give a shit about the guy down the road that's got a 100,000 square foot machine shop, keeping him in business. But if shit hits the fan, I'm worried about myself. I'm worried about my family, my business. If I need to drop my rate to $100 an hour, I don't have a machine payment. I don't have a building payment. I don't care. I'm making money.
Do I know you're not a race to the bottom? You said, I'll drop my rates to $100 an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll drop your rates to $30 an hour. I'd be like, well, but no, I mean, it's like you said, I mean, we kind of talked about this a little bit before. I don't think it was on camera, but the most important thing you can possibly do, in my opinion, and I know with Brad, I think you share this opinion. I don't know about you guys. I don't know if we got there, but having no machine payments and lowering your overhead as much as feasible is one of the most important things you can do, not only as a starting machine shop or a small machine shop. At a certain point, yeah, you know what? You're not going to be able to buy a $3 million machine or whatever, your 100-person shop needs, probably with cash. But as a small shop, under 20 people, to me, I know a guy who, how do I phrase this all very politically correctly? He went and bought a machine shop. He worked at a machine shop, went and bought a machine shop, and they didn't own the building. They did not own the building they were in. And it was a fairly sizable machine shop. And every time they walked in the door on the first of the month to turn on the lights was $30,000. That's for rent. That's not including hydro. That's not including machine payments. That's not including labor, like nothing. 30 grand to pop on the lights. And we're not talking about a $40 million company. We're talking about a 3-4 max. Oof. Anything you can do and that company didn't do very well, but anything you can do, especially, as a guy who's starting a shop, not having those machine payments, getting them done quickly, finding ways to get paid quickly from your customers in order to get those machines paid off quickly are going to give you a huge advantage over what most people do. People live on credit. How many people have car payments that they probably shouldn't have? Don't do that with your machining business unless you have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I hear about guys that, they have 3-4 machines they're making payments on, and they're working 7 days a week just to keep up with it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to work 7 days a week. I don't want to work 15-hour days.
Nope.
That doesn't sound like fun.
Nope.
I don't need to pay myself $200,000 a year. Like, I'm
That's the big thing too. Yeah. When you're starting a machine shop, the one thing I feel like a lot of people don't realize is, do you want to be a business owner or do you want to buy yourself a job?
Yep.
Right? Anybody can buy themselves a job. You can go buy yourself a nice machine, put it in your garage, and instead of working for a boss, you're working for the bank to make your payments. I think what you're doing right now, being able to coach, being able to be available for your family, you didn't buy yourself a job. You buy yourself business and freedom. And if you're just buying yourself a job, well, might as well let someone else take the risk, right? Why risk my credit in my house for that?
Yeah. Yep. So, and on top of your comment saying, getting your machines paid for, running a business with minimal debt as possible. Once you get into that, once you step into that and you got your machines paid for, you're running practically business debt free. I don't want to pull a Dave Ramsey here because I don't agree with everything he says, but move that into your personal life next. And that was what I did. I got my machines paid for, and then I started, investing in my personal life. It was, I don't have a vehicle payment. I got my house paid for. I got my wife's stuff paid for. Now I don't worry about shit. If I don't have a job to run next week, I'm not worried about it.
Yep.
I'll find something. I can, hang out at home with the wife for the day.
Yep.
If she wants to take a vacation, if we want to take a family vacation, there's no stress. Get yourself, business is stressful as hell. My wife and I opened a salon 11 years ago. We bought a failing business, and it was, I'd never recommend buying a business that's failing because it's the most stressful thing you'll ever do. But so I've been there. So going into this business, I had the right mindset and what I should do, what I need to do to make it successful.
Yeah.
I spent 5 years trying to turn around a failing business.
So just to play the devil's advocate here, in regards to buying a used machine for cheap or buying a new machine on a loan, that sort of thing. Say you already know you can get customers. You're working at a company and you know that you can get some of the customers that you have there, or you have contacts, whatever. Say you already know that you can get the work to easily afford a $2,000 machine payment.
I would say there's no risk in it because
of course there's a risk because obviously you don't have anything nailed down yet. You don't even have an RFQ yet, but you're pretty sure you can do it. Like, even you buying a machine, you didn't know for sure if it was going to work out. So no matter what, there's a risk. But there's just more risk with buying a machine on a loan. you buy the machine, for a fact you can make that payment, or say like you're working at a company right now and you can afford that payment right now on what you make. Say in your home life you're debt free, right? Or you only have your mortgage and you have $3-4 grand extra a month. You can afford to spend $2 grand a month on a nice machine, something good to get you started. So you're already fine with that payment. So now you have that machine that has all the bells and whistles. It has the probing and all that stuff, the 30 tool changer, whatever it is you want. You get started, you're making money, and now you have extra money on top of the money you're already making from your job. You pay your machine off faster than normal. You can have it paid off in 6 months or a year, whatever it is. And then you're on your way, and now you've got a brand new machine, holding tight tolerances, no reliability issues. You don't have to fix it, and it's paid off. What about that route? Just to throw it out
I
there.
would say in a perfect world, yes.
Yeah.
But customers are just as loyal as employees.
Yeah.
If you're gonna base your purchase on a customer promising you work, I'd force a contract. I'd, hey, if you can promise me this amount of work in a year, I'll buy the machine.
Yeah.
I mean, you might buy the machine based on what they're telling you, and then you go home and you start doing it and they're not happy with something.
Well,
you might lose them right away.
Yeah.
Or your employer finds out you got a machine and you might get fired.
Right. Well,
so there's that risk too.
Or you might get fired for poaching those customers. But regardless of whether you have customers or not, say you can afford the machine with what you're making at your day job and you have enough spare time to make parts at home. So you don't have a kid, right?
Here's the thing.
You just
at the end of the day, there's the way Brad and I are describing it. I feel like Brad and I are very similar in our approach. We're small time guys. We have a way that works for us. I've seen guys go out and buy the $150,000, $200,000 German machine that we're talking about, put it in their garage, and make more money in a year than my company with 7 people do, and continually does it year after year.
Yeah.
There's an element of betting on yourself. There's an element of having a business. I don't think it's betting on yourself. That's a bad way to put it. These people don't just go out on a whim and say, I'm going to do this today. There's a very firm business plan in place. Like you said, probably business contracts in place. Also, like you said, Cam, maybe this is what they want to do and they can afford it. They can afford the payment, whether they really make money on it or not that month. People make that work. I don't want to dissuade people from doing that if that's what they think they do or what they need to do. The big thing to me is the barrier to entry doesn't need to be there. That doesn't need to be the benchmark. I still wouldn't advise it. If you're 19, 25, 28, you want to go start a machine shop, maybe start in a more realistic fashion. If you are in an aerospace alley in Connecticut and they're dying for mill turn work and you have the gumption to go put a $250,000 machine on your floor to do that mill turn work, God bless you. You'll probably do well. Me personally, for my lifestyle and what I want to sleep at night. I don't want to be seriously, I don't want that. I don't want that kind of risk in my life. I live comfortably and quietly. I lose enough sleep as is just with, what I do. If you have that risk tolerance, power to you. But for your average guy, realize there's a lot of things you can do up to that point.
So I guess really the question comes down to, what do you prioritize in life? Yep. Do you prioritize peace? Do you just want it to be, nice and peaceful and relaxing whenever you get home? Or are you willing to sacrifice all of that and grind it out and just be miserable and stressed out for however many years it takes until you can get to a point where you can relax?
The peaceful route you're pitching, though, too, I think you're underselling that. It's not like it's a walk in the park either way. You know what I mean?
No.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
you're going to be pretty damn stressed out if you have a $5,000 a month rent for your shop plus another $2, $3, $4, $5,000 for your machines, and you're a one-man band and you got a daytime job, right? You're going to be pretty damn stressed out. Right? Exactly. But you put a $30,000 machine in your garage that you bought outright, you're not going to be that stressed out if you're not getting the work you need to get.
No,
right?
Not at all. I mean, like I said, people buy $30, $40, $50,000 trucks.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
doesn't make them money.
Yeah.
That $30,000 machine, I mean, you could find somebody in your community that wants snowmobile parts.
Right.
You know?
Mhm.
I mean, and there's people that spend 30 grand on a hobby machine just because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's,
Ooh,
you know, and
dude,
then,
I've seen people spend a lot more than that on a
Yeah.
hobby machine before. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
absolutely. You know, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, going back to the saying it's easier than ever, you know, what more on top of that machine do you need? That $150,000 machine, what that mill turn, you know, you got the money for the 5-axis. What's your software going to cost at that point? Now you're in high-end software. I don't want to say Fusion can't do it, but you know, someone that's going to spend $150,000 on a machine or $250,000, they're probably going to go to a high-end software that's going to cost them $5,000 a year. It's going to cost them $25,000 to get into up front. So now you're $200,000 tools, end mills, holders, software, everything you need. Now you're at $300,000-$400,000
Before you know it.
Yeah, you're not going to run $40 cutters in a machine that, you know, does a 30,000 RPM spindle and has, you know, 2 micron repeatability. It doesn't make any sense. So you're exactly right.
Well, so if you're starting up and you're trying to stay small and save your costs, and you buy a $20,000, $30,000 machine, or you sit at an auction you watch auctions for 6 months and you get that VF2 SSYT for $17,000. I'm not a Fusion fan. I like Camworks. I would spend the money on a higher end product, but you can get into Fusion cheap as hell. And there's people that do great work with it. They get a lot of shit done with it.
Yeah.
They do great programming.
Sorry, I just want to throw out there. So you said, you know, like wait 6 months for that VF2 SS for SSYT, whatever, for, you know, $17,000. I think people underestimate the power that you have whenever you have cash in hand and you can wait.
Yep.
That right there is key, because like it's very easy to be like, okay, so I've got enough money right now to where I could find a machine. Then you try to force it to happen. You start looking at all the auctions. You say, okay, I could afford that machine. It doesn't really have everything I want. It's kind of an old piece of junk, but I can make it work, and I could get it here, you know, like right away. Like maybe that's not the best approach. Maybe because you have that money and it's not hurting anything, you take your time and wait and just, you know, wait it out, see what you can come across. And then you can come across that VF2 SS, you know, with some bells and whistles on it for a killer deal. I think.
Did you
I'm
guys
still
see
upset I
that
didn't buy
auction that was up yesterday?
Uh-uh.
I think it was in the group chat. There was a VF2 going for like, I think Dave said it. I think it was like 8,800, and it was like 23 hours out from the bid. You guys didn't see that?
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
Yeah.
Must have missed
I
it.
almost bid on it, but I didn't want to try to get it across the border. But
Brad would have bought.
Like you said, Cam, if you got the money and you can wait and you can watch a couple auctions and you can find that perfect machine, and you know, you might get a sweet deal on something where you got enough cash to get it rigged, set up, you get your phase converter. I mean, you could be all in for $20,000.
That's the thing to consider. What power do you have?
There's a I don't know if it's Dave Ramsey or someone else, but I read somewhere that there's a business philosophy called fail fast, fail cheap. So if you're going to start a business, do it in a way that you can get back out of it and not be out in a cardboard box, you know?
Yep.
And that actually works great with what we're talking about in a way, because, you know, at least for the machine, if you didn't get work for it and you need it gone, you can sell it for probably 95% of what you got in it, assuming you haven't wrecked it.
Yep.
But there is a big part of that we were getting onto, of like, the machine is only a part of it. You've also got to have the space for it. You've got to have the power for it, which could be, you know, a 220 volt single phase circuit at the low end. Could be 220 3 phase. Depending on how crazy you go, you might be getting into 480, you know, or something like that, and all the nonsense that comes with that. If you need 3 phase and you don't have 3 phase power run to your property, guess what? That's not cheap at all.
you're putting in posts.
Yes. And, you know, and then, you know, the floor and the building and everything else. I mean, I know from experience, because I just did it, you know, to get mind you, I mean, this is house, garage, everything. You don't need a shop this big, but I just had a 2,100 square foot metal building put up, no wiring, no nothing, just a building and concrete and a little bit of plumbing. And I'm in at almost $80,000. And that's in rural Tennessee where stuff is cheap, So like, if you've already got a garage, sure. I know Ian doesn't like garage guys, but I mean,
Stop.
Come visit, Ian. Come visit, Ian.
Yeah, I do like garage guys.
You barely have to cross the border to get into Minnesota.
I actually think every time I hear Minnesota, I think that may actually be further north than me. But yeah.
Yeah, when you hear them talk.
Yeah.
Hey,
Don't you know? Don't you know? Pat, you made the comment about the power.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple guys on the Practical Machinist forum, Instagram, Facebook. They talk about bringing in 3-phase power. Oh, I got to have the company. You can get a phase converter. Phase converters aren't terribly expensive.
That's true.
I have my original 30 horsepower phase converter I bought in 2013 for $750. That powers all 4 of my machines. I have had all 4 of my machines running off of that one phase converter. I know my buddy that's got a shop locally too. I think he's got a 60 horse. He paid $4 or $5 grand for. So when I built my building, I did reach out to see what it would cost to bring in 3-phase, and it was a 6-figure number. I wouldn't even considered it. And then if you want to compare the return on investments of paying that versus running a phase converter,
right?
My highest electric bill I've ever had in 5 years was $230 a month. It's usually $170 a month
with 4 machines.
Yes.
Wow, that's that's very, very cheap. That's incredible.
So Ian, I'll probably never leave my house. I would be
at this point.
I mean, I hear about people locally in Minnesota that are paying $1,500 a month in a commercial space. So, I mean, I feel like I'm doing pretty damn good.
I got 3 units. I got 2 lathes and 5 mills, a wire EDM, and an office. And my 1 unit is $1,500 a month in Canadian funny money. Other one's usually about $250, and then the other one's usually about. It ranges depending on how hard we're running the machines and how many hours. It could go up to $500. What's that add up to? $2,200 ish a month just in hydro.
Damn.
Hydro is what we call power in Canada.
Hydro.
I was wondering what that was.
Hydro.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you had a hydro
what they call it
or something.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know.
Interesting.
How much does a phase converter usually run? Like, how much does it usually cost?
I mean, I got mine for $750, but I said I got a buddy about a 60 phase, 60 horse brand new. I think it was $4 or $5 grand into it.
Yeah.
I got a friend that I think he had a 30 horse. He paid like $2,400 for it.
Okay. So less than 10.
So it's not terrible.
Less than 10 grand. Likely less than 5 for what you need starting out.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's another thing that adds to the cost to think about if you're going to start your business.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And your compressor and all the things that aren't sexy. No one gets excited about an air compressor. No one gets excited about putting power in. Everybody wants to talk about what kind of machine they're going to run. Great. Yeah. What about everything else that goes into it? Right. It's, it's as you guys know, you all work in machine shops, you realize how much goes into that. So I don't really need to preach to the choir here, but
yeah.
And coolant's not cheap. I'd recommend you get in touch with the distributor and get them to fill your machine the first time for free.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah.
A lot of
we just did that with one of our machines. Yep.
Something that I notice a lot of people do, and it's I don't think they realize how much money they could save, is they buy tools from the big websites that you can just go and order, like MSC, for example. Things are overpriced online. The prices that you see there tend to be overpriced. I mean, there are some good websites or some good companies that just sell stuff online where you can get it for a good deal. But the best prices that I've found across the board are through actual tooling vendors. So even if you're a small guy, like just a one-man shop or whatever, you're not going through a ton of tooling, still get in touch with some tooling vendors. And if nothing else, a lot of them will work for you in the sense of, you have a part that has a funky feature and you don't know where to get a tool for it, or even what tool or what direction to go to machine that funky feature. Tell those guys, send them the print, let them figure it out for you. They do that stuff all the time. I use it for that all the time. And so, but you can save a ton of money going that route. And like I said, there are websites where you have to actually get a login and that sort of thing and like become a member or whatever it is. And you can get pretty good pricing too. But like just the typical places that people buy their tools online, you're getting overcharged.
Which I'm going to say, with that being said, talking about tooling vendors, somebody asked a question about buying tooling.
Yeah. On one of the,
find it.
On one of the,
was that on YouTube?
On YouTube.
Yeah, he said, in case you're looking for topics for next episode, as a weekend warrior, I always wonder what kind of discounts are available to businesses for tool purchase, or does everyone pay full retail no matter how much you buy every month?
Right.
I've never noticed a difference in pricing from the companies I've worked for that were large versus the company or me buying stuff on my own. I think the prices are the same.
Yeah.
I would say you could probably get better deals depending on some of the vendors you go through versus, of course, MSC.
So we're always trying to save money here, right? By looking at different vendors, different brands, whatever. One in particular that sticks out to me, and this goes with what Cam was saying. It is good to find a local distributor that can get you better pricing, because the big guys, whoever they might be, I mean, you're paying for the convenience of a lot of times they've got it in stock. You can get it next day, that kind of thing. They've got more inventory, that kind of thing. A lot of local distributors, they might be drop shipping. They might not really be warehousing it and sending it to you. But I mean, just like a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, whatever, we had our main guy that we buy tooling from. We've been buying bandsaw blades, which we use quite a bit of bandsaw blades from a big distributor, a national level distributor. He decided he had the chance to actually take a look at them, and he could quote the exact same thing. It's not like we're taking a chance on a different brand or it's not quite the same, whatever. Literally every single item, we're saving 38%. Now, when you're talking 38% on an item that your big price from big company XYZ was, $120, $150, that adds up a lot on items that you go through several of in a year or a month even. We might buy 5 or 6 bandsaw blades in a month. So, that's the kind of thing that you have to look for. And it helps to establish a good relationship with one as well, to get help with problems that you have. Like Cam was saying, again, I can send a guy a print, and if he doesn't know, he knows somebody that does. And there are like big companies, big tooling sale companies that can do that for you. It just depends. It's kind of like the machine thing. It really depends on the rep for your area. I would say that's like the local rep for your tooling manufacturer of choice plays a huge part in what tooling you use. Because if you've got good representation from a company, you're more apt to use them. If they are not helpful or they're not present, you need that support.
Cam, I was going to go back on the use versus new downtime.
Yeah,
I have mechanical breakdown coverage on all my machines.
Right.
Cost me about $500 a year for each machine. And I made sure I asked, I said, if I crash my machine and I blow up my spindle, is it covered? And they said, yes, it's covered. I've only used it once, and my spindle motor in my VF2 went a couple years ago. I went back and forth with Haas. I didn't want to spend the $15,000 on one, so I pulled it out myself, and they were like 2 weeks out, and I didn't have time to wait for it. I pulled the motor out myself, brought it to a local company to rebuild it, upgraded the bearings and everything. It was like $2,000, and they did it. I dropped it off on a Friday. I had it back on Monday.
Right.
I didn't even think about it. I was talking to somebody on, must have been Facebook or something, and they're like, you should just send the invoice in and see if they'll pay it. So I did. So I sent them in the invoice. I was thinking, well, I pulled it out. I put it back in. They're not going to cover it. They sent me a check. Less deductible.
Wow.
And is that through business insurance?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I'll be willing to bet a lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah. And I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know it was a thing. I think, so I'm going to go back to the debt thing now here too. If you can use debt and you're responsible and I use it occasionally. Most of the time when I do buy a machine, I will borrow, but I have the cash available. I throw the cash into an account and I set it up to pay it off in 13 months. That way I build the relationship with the bank. I get my business credit, but I have the money there ready. So if something was to hit the fan, I can pull back my 13 month payments and make it 24, 48 and keep more cash in hand. Or if I feel like I can pay it off. And then I force my machine to pay for itself by replenishing that account. But I don't see it because it's actually at a bank account that I don't have online access to. So I don't even see it. So that thing just gets paid by itself out of the account that I already have put in there and factored in for 13 months.
This is the way.
And yeah, and so when I first did that company was like, hey, do you want, the finance company was like, hey, you need to put insurance on the machine. Do you need a recommendation? And I was like, well, what the fuck do I need insurance for? Like, I didn't even know anything about it. And they put me in contact and she was like, well, wind, water, hail, whatever. I'm like, sure, whatever. Cool. She said, well, do you want mechanical coverage too? And I'm like, well, what does that cover? She's like, everything. If anything breaks down, we'll cover it. I'm like, hell yeah, I want that. I just bought a used machine. Of course I want that. So for somebody looking at used machines, have that peace of mind. Pay the I think it's based off the machine price.
Well, but I was just about to ask that.
Yeah, it is.
Can they pretty much total your machine out and be like, well, your machine's worth 15 grand. This repair is worth 20. We're not going to do it.
I think they can. And so I would probably use it for smaller stuff. If I had something major, I probably wouldn't let them total my machine. If I could, like, I'm sure if they sent in that $15,000 for that motor, they probably would have.
Yeah.
But
what's that process like? Because it can't be like totaling a car. They're not going to just come take your machine.
I don't know. I'd buy it back though if they wanted me to.
Right.
I can still make it run.
We'll give you 25 grand for it, but we're going to total it.
Yeah.
You get a salvage title.
Right.
I don't know.
The gop's going to pull you over if you're running that spindle.
Right. Right.
Nice.
So that's another option if you're buying a used machine.
That's good to know, man. I wouldn't have thought about that. I remember now what I was going to say earlier. Oh, my goodness. This might not apply to a small shop, but there's a few manufacturers, maybe more, that offer what they call contract pricing. And really all that means is like, you know, a lot of times a distributor will work a deal with them. You don't have to necessarily do it. They'll work a deal with that tooling company to be like, hey, we're looking at buying X amount of these drills per year. And a lot of times it doesn't even have to be that many. I mean, you might be thinking you have to buy 200 carbide drills in a year. No, it doesn't have to be near that much. But there's a certain tooling company that we've done that with, where we might buy 15 of these drills a year. You know, it's for some kind of production job we have. But it knocks the price down, 20, 30% from what even normal local distributor pricing would be. So it's probably 50% of what, random big national distributor would be. I mean, that goes a long way. You just got to find the right company. And that, again, back to what Cam pointed out before, if you can find the right distributor that can help you with stuff like that, it goes a long way.
Well, yeah, quantity helps. If you can guarantee you're going to order quantity. So, one of the vendors that we use, I talked to a few different people about mist collectors. I guess two different people. But the one vendor I ended up buying a mist collector from, I was like, hey, if we get a mist collector, we don't have any mist collectors right now. We got 6 machines. If we get a mist collector, basically what I want to do is I want to get a mist collector, try it out on a machine. If we like it, we're going to buy one for every machine. So I want some sort of discount. I'm not going to pay the same price, for every single machine. He's like, yeah, no problem, man. I'll give you a quantity discount, give you a homeboy hookup. I'll even give it to you on this trial. the not trial, but like this mist collector you're going to buy and test out. And so, I got and he's like, I'll give you that price on this mist collector, this first mist collector you're going to buy. There's no guarantee that you're going to buy the rest of them, but I'll give it to you on this one, on the first one anyways, if you just kind of give me a gentleman's agreement that if you like it, you'll buy one for every machine later. I was like, all right, sounds good. If I like it, I'll buy one for every machine from you, guaranteed, just a verbal agreement. And so I was able to get, I think it was $3,600 for the mist collector. Might have been $4,000. I think I got like $400 off for that one mist collector. So once you add that across 6 machines, I mean, it's not insignificant. But if you can guarantee quantity,
free, essentially,
yeah, exactly. So if you can guarantee quantity, I think that's where you're gonna be able to find a benefit in going through a vendor and actually, I think that's really gonna be the way you're gonna find a discount. If you can't guarantee quantity, they're not gonna want to give you a huge discount. You're not special at that point. So many of y'all may have seen me drinking this coffee here. This is Shop Floor Coffee. They're based out of Plymouth, Minnesota. They sent us some coffee to try out. Honestly, this is probably some of the best coffee I've had. And I'm not just saying it. I drink a lot of different coffee and I really enjoyed it. Anyways, the special thing about Shop Floor Coffee is they're investing back into the manufacturing community. So 20% of their proceeds goes back into workforce development programs. So then they can also support a big company. If you want to get coffee sent to you and you're at a big company, you want them to supply it for the whole company, they can handle that. Or if you're an individual or a small company, they can set up a subscription there too. So they've got you covered either way. So Shop Floor Coffee.
Wow. Thank you very much for having me, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. You guys are doing a great thing here, and I hope you continue doing it because I know a lot of people love it, and I listen every week, and it's a blast. So please continue doing it, and thank you very much for having me. You can find me on Instagram at Lakewood Machine, LinkedIn at Ian Sandusky, just like my name. Practical Machinist, the Machine Shop Talk and Shop Tour and Making the Cut series. And for everything Lakewood, www.lakewoodmachine.com.
Awesome.
All right. Perfect. Well, thanks for coming, Ian. It was good to finally talk to you. See you all the time on YouTube.
Well, hopefully that keeps going on. So hopefully we'll get to talk to you guys soon, and hopefully I'll see you guys sooner than later in person.
We'll see you at IMTS in about a month.
Yep.
Get ready. Here we go.
As usual, you can find me at Machining is Cool on Instagram. I also have a Facebook now, so you can find me on there under Machining is Cool as well, I guess. Machining is Cool on Instagram. Also the same on the forum as well. Machining is Cool on Practical Machinist forum.
Well, you can find me on Instagram mainly, Marvel Machining. I think I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, but I don't do much there, so Instagram.
And you can find me on Instagram and the Practical Machinist forum is at JobShopperTN.
Practical Machinist forum. Yep.
Yeah.
Go there, leave some comments.
Thank you all for listening. And we'll get you next time.